Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform where we talk with a variety of teachers, entrepreneurs, spiritualists, uplifters, givers, shakers, and serenaders. Everyone has a lesson to learn and a lesson to share. Let's use our life experiences to enrich someone's heart, mind, spirit, and soul. Through sharing our experiences, we can be a learning inspiration for one another. I'm your host, Chris Levens. Let's welcome today's guest. Today's guest is Nicole Angelique Kerr. Nicole Angelique Kerr, award-winning health expert, public speaker, and author. Nicole has appeared on CNN, PBS, CBS, ABC, The Food Channel, and a host of other TV and radio shows to share her unique perspective on wellness, lifestyle, and nutrition. For the past 30 years, Nicole has worked in all sections of society, including CDC. Throughout her career, she has focused on supporting people from every walk of life to make realistic, meaningful, happy choices for lifelong health and well-being. When she was a 19-year-old cadet at the United States Air Force Academy, Nicole would be forced to learn how to live and love differently following a terrifying and transformative near-death experience. Her memory of the crash came back 20 years later, and it has taken Nicole almost another 2 decades to align her soul, spirit, mind, and body, proving healing is certainly a nonlinear process. A disabled veteran, Nicole now pursues her vocation of being an eternality advocate with the publication of her new best-selling book, You Are Deathless, a near-death experience taught me how to fully live and not fear death. Let's give a warm welcome to Nicole Angelique Kerr. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. I'm delighted, excited, and so grateful to be on your show today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for taking some time out to be a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so happy to have you today. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Can
Me
you
too.
thank you so much. Can you tell everyone where you are in the world and what time it is?
Yes, I am located in a town called New Bern, North Carolina. It is it's a coastal town, right where the Neuse and the Trent Rivers meet. And it is now 9:05 a.m. on Friday.
Yes, we appreciate you taking the time out in the morning, definitely. Well, we're going to jump right on in. I like to ask all my guests this first question. I believe that our lives are in spiritual design. Can you share your life layout or blueprint with everyone? How you grew up, where, your family lifestyle?
Absolutely. I grew up in the deep South. I'm talking deep in Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't get much deeper than that. That whole region of the South is known as the Bible Belt. So religion is a cornerstone or a foundation of growing up there. I grew up Southern Baptist. That's what my dad was. And my mother was Lutheran. So I grew up with going to church a lot. And those were the two denominations that I was, my concept of God was formed in. I have 3 other siblings. I have an older sister and 2 brothers. We're all over the world. My brother is in Australia. Another brother's in Florida. My sister's in Texas, and my parents are in Australia as well. So kind of spread out. And in terms of education, I went to private parochial school until the 7th grade. And then my mother wanted to try public schools. And this is at the time when it was integration of schools in the South. And I actually was bused into an all-Black school, which was kind of the reverse of situations that most people think. So there were two white buses that were bused across town into an all-Black junior high school, and I was on one of those. So I got to see the South in a whole different way, and not a very good way, I should say, in terms of the racism, just all that, the civil rights, all of the rights, of equality for everyone. And then I would say after that, I went back into private school the last year and a half. And then I went to the Air Force Academy, and that's when my near-death experience happened. Once I was physically well, I went to where my sister lived in Dallas, and I completed my education at Southern Methodist University, getting a bachelor's degree in public relations. And then I moved on to Louisiana State University, where I got my dietetics degree. Then I went up the Mississippi River to the University of Minnesota and got my master's in public health. I got my registered dietitian nutrition license. And then from then over the years, I've gotten different certifications, neuro-emotional technique to deal with the emotions that are suppressed in the body. I believe that's a huge piece for people today, are suppressed emotions that are causing a lot of our physical issues, and just all kinds of various, psychology courses. I love to learn, and now I'm into energy medicine. So that's really, I think, what's up and coming is we're all energy, and to understand how to work with the energy in our own body, our energy field, and to, connect with others.
Wow. That sounds pretty interesting. I've never even heard of anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I got married at age 40. So for those of you who are still looking for a partner and you haven't reached 40 yet, hold out for what you really, really want.
I know that's right.
They do show up against the odds. And just 2 years ago, I've never had a dog, and we adopted two little Pekingese. So my husband and my little two Pekingese, and I live in a 1850 redone home in New Bern. New Bern was one of the areas that was not burned down during the Civil War. So I appreciate the history here, and that it was a refuge for slaves as well.
Oh, so it's a large space.
Yeah, they're tall. They're like 3 stories,
okay. It's going up.
But yes. And so I live in the historic district, and I have to tell you, I get the benefit of the old with the new, because it was completely redone on the inside when we bought it. So if you're ever in New Bern, come see me, Chris.
Yes. Well, let's have tea.
We have a couple of tea shops.
Yes.
So that kind of brings you up to where I am present day in terms of life.
Wow, you've done a lot. When you were naming off all of the educational things, I was like, wow, how in the world? Like, you were schooling it up. Oh my goodness.
And I did a lot of different things in terms of jobs, working for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, although it doesn't, the reputation it has now isn't what it had 20 years ago, with the COVID and all of that. That's been a real disappointment.
So true. You're right.
yeah. But I've worked at hospitals. I've been a wellness director. I've been an oncology dietitian. I've worked in, academia, University of Hawaii, University of, anyway, different community colleges. And I've also worked for nonprofit, American Cancer Society. So I've had the opportunity to really work in different realms of just, corporations, all kinds of things. Yeah. So now I'm into my vocation instead of occupation, which is what you this eternality, which is a hard word to pronounce because you want to say eternal, but it's not.
Yes. I don't know if I did well with it or not, but
You did. And most people don't even know what that means, but it really is. It's that quality or state of being eternal and having no end, ceaselessness, without end, endlessness. And I say that, I created that term, and it's about our soul. And, the first lesson from near-death experiencers that we all have in common is we do not die, and our soul lives on. And so that's where that phrase is coming from, is I want people to know that they don't die. Their soul, their essence, their spirit lives on. This physical vehicle, yes, that does decay and die, but our soul lives on forever. It has many lives. This isn't our first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination.
I like that. Okay, Nicole, well, let's get into it. Okay. So how do you know about there is a spirit and there's a soul and maybe someplace beyond? What happened at 19 that has given you this insight?
Well, Chris, I think at that age, we all think we're immortal and invincible and nothing's going to happen to us. And I certainly wasn't thinking I would die at 19 years old. But what happened that particular day was I was a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy. And I did that because I was trying to please my father. I am a recovering people pleaser. And that is an identity that if you have taken that on, you feel at the end of the day like you are a roach that has been stomped on, because you don't get anything out of that. And so I grew up, in the South. Another one is this people pleasing thing. And we're told, don't hurt your mother and be a good girl, and all these messages we get from society. Don't be angry. And so in my family, the way to get attention and be a good girl was to do everything I was told by others. They knew better for me than I knew for myself, was the message. So my dad wanted us kids to go to the Air Force Academy because that's where he graduated from. So in 76, when Congress opened up the academies to women, the first group graduated in 80, so mine was the class of 86. So I was there when it was still relatively new for women to even be at the academies. And I will tell you, it's abusive. It's an abusive environment. There is mental abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, and for women, and I'm sure men too, sexual abuse going on. And I experienced all of it. And I will have to tell you, it's still going on to this day. And it's very unfortunate, but especially as a newbie or a dually coming into these academies, that's what you're up against is, constant harassment, hazing, whatever you want to call it. And it's, it's a power trip, especially for the class above you that it's just been done to. They want to turn around and do it to you. Not the best model, in my opinion, right. But anyway, that's what fraternities, they all have that same type of introduction into their society, so to speak, or their group. So that day was a Sunday, and I had been to the commandant's house to recruit high school girls to come to the academy, if you can believe that. So I was talking to them about how great it was, when the whole time I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. But anyway, I did that, and then I joined the rest of my squadron. And if you know about the military at the academies, there's about 4,000 cadets there, and you're broken up into squadrons and of 100. And our squadron was kicking off the new school year with a softball, beer ball kind of game. And I got there late. And so I left. I was one of the last to leave, and I got a ride back with a senior that I didn't know hardly at all. And they had been drinking, and he wanted to stop on the way back to the academy to have a couple more beers. So we did that. And I actually had 2 beers at that point and a cigarette. And at this point, I want to interject. My dad's rules for the academy were no smoking, no drinking, no dating cadets. Okay, that's what he told me going in my freshman year. So here I go to school with, almost 3,800 guys, and I'm told not to. Okay, now mind you, Chris, I had never been on a date. That's how conservative or isolated or protected or whatever you want to call it. By my father, especially, he didn't see any need to date. So I go to this place where there are all these guys, and I don't know what to expect in terms of, somebody trying to make a pass at me, all of these kind of things. And I knew during boot camp when they were calling me these really foul names that I was like, oh my goodness, I definitely am naive here, And so anyway, we were supposed to be back at the academy. We have a curfew at 7:35, and I was worried about getting in trouble. And I kept telling him, hey, we got to get back. But we were in this Corvette convertible. The top was down. And I was thinking, for once, I'm going to have some fun in my life. I'm going to have some alcohol. I'm going to smoke a cigarette and just have fun and quit worrying all the time about, I can't do this, I can't do that. And that's what that age is about, right? College is about finding yourself out. And needless to say, we never made it back to the academy. He wanted to stop and look at the Rocky Mountains. And that's when I went, this guy has an agenda. He's had an agenda. He wants to make out, and I don't want to do this. And we got back on the road, and he put his hand, I know this now because my memory came back 19 years later. He put his hand on my leg, crotch actually, and I said no. And he got really mad at me and spun the wheel, and the car fishtailed and hit a huge boulder. We went flying out of the car. And I will tell you in my book that when I remembered it, this is how I wrote it. I am spinning around insanely fast, like those tilt-a-wheel carnival rides, grabbing the side of the car door. I scream as my side of the car smashes head-on into something. What is it? I realize I can't sit. I realize I can't stop anything, and my voice fades. I fly out of my seat through the windshield. Around me, glass is shattering like splatter paint. I feel pieces of it cutting into my thighs and legs. God, this hurts. And then something slices my left foot. Bad. I try to shield my face with my hand, my mouth wide open under it. Then I'm in the air for what feels like forever. When I finally hit the ground, I understand that I am going to die. My mind freezes. I scream, oh my God, help me. And then I have one final thought. I'm not going to make it. And I didn't make it. I was pronounced dead at the scene. And some people who lived close by heard it, ran out, checked me, and could not get any vitals. They went back to get a blanket. They covered me up, called 911. The driver of the car, later, it turned out his blood alcohol was double the limit for Colorado, and he had some injuries to his back, but he was conscious. He was okay, in terms of being alive and not really having many injuries. And so I, on the other hand, when the paramedics got there, the EMTs got there, I have a chapter called Calling All Angels in my book. And the first angel that showed up was the EMT named John Hartling. And he was a former Navy SEAL. And he's like, got this, really hard attitude and like, I'm going to do this myself. Nobody tells me that any of my victims are dead or alive. So he uncovered the blanket and couldn't get any vitals himself. So the last thing he tried was something called a sternal rub, where it's designed to elicit pain. And you just go right up your sternum with your knuckles really hard. And it hurts if you've ever had it done to you. And so what happened was my right eyelid flickered and my pupil dilated. And at that moment, Chris, my soul that had fled from my body when I went through the windshield and went up in the air, that's when my soul left my body. Okay. And so it came back into my body through my eye. And so he was able to get a blood pressure of 60/0. Well, that's basically almost dead, right? And had these mask pants on me. So he put, it's the first time he's ever used them. He put them on me, and they are designed to get your extremities, the blood to flow back up into your heart and other organs. So he got those on me, got me into the bus doing CPR, got me to the nearest community hospital. And they weren't sure I was they really didn't think I was going to make it that night. And so I somehow stabilized, and that was the beginning of 4 months in the hospital, 7 weeks in ICU, 64 pints of blood transfused. That was at the time when they were not 83, when they were not screening blood for AIDS. And so I remember getting a call the following year that since I was doing better, I needed to go get screened for an AIDS test since I had so much blood transfused. And I just remember the fear I felt waiting for that test to come back.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah, and it came back, thank God, negative. But I remember at the time a congressman's daughter had had a car crash, and she only had 1 pint infused, and it was contaminated, and she wound up dying from AIDS. So, that was back then when they didn't know. And so, of course, the screenings changed after that. But, that's like redoing your system about 8 times, so
yeah, right.
Amputated my left foot. They put that back together. My pelvis was broken on both sides. My wrist was severed, had bad road rash on my face. And then I sliced a huge 4th-degree laceration where my anal and sphincter muscle is. And so ended up getting sepsis and gangrene in that right leg, and very close to having it amputated. I was just had to have a colostomy to divert it. I go into all the detail of the accident in the book. And I know this now from my memory coming back 19 years later. I have the district attorney's report. I have all the medical records. And I went back in 2008 and interviewed the paramedic and the nurse that was with me and the doctor, and they're all still alive. They're all retired. The doctor and the paramedic are in their 80s, but they remembered my case. They, they had never had anybody that they had treated come back and thank them 25 years later.
Wow.
So, I would say to anybody, thank your health providers, especially if you're in a trauma situation and you survive, yes, it's their job, but thank them. It really is because of the grace of God and their prompt attention that I'm still here.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Wow, that is intense. That is intense.
So in terms of like my memory coming back, Chris, people go, well, why did it take so long?
Yes, it's definitely what was that is a question that I wondered too.
Yeah. And I will tell you that our body represses trauma. Okay. And part of that is called soul loss. So when trauma happens to you and you cannot integrate it or deal with it, part of your soul fragments in order to self-protect. And that's a piece of healing that a lot of people don't understand, that you have to get those fragmented pieces, or you need to get those fragmented pieces of your soul back, okay? Mm-hmm. Because you're walking around basically with, your soul, part of that is just exposed. It's not whole, is what I'm trying to say. And that's why it's so important to do work to go back and to clear the trauma if you've never processed it. And people say, well, I could never remember it. And I said, when your body feels safe enough, the memory will come up. And I really believe this, if it's not for the highest and greatest good that you remember it and clear it, that there's some reason that you're being protected from it. And most of the time it's because you don't have support to help you deal with it. If you had to remember it, it would put you probably in a mental or psychiatric state that would not be helpful for you to just cope with life, and you have to be able to be willing to go there and to trust your body. And so many people don't trust their body. They trust their mind over their body, but the body keeps the score. That's actually the title of the book that reads, that really deals with trauma. So I talk a lot in my book about trauma and how important it is, especially if your parents came from had traumatic things happen to them, and they never worked through it. And their motto was, well, I didn't need any help. I'm fine. You just get on through life. Well, they're not fine. Okay. And what happens is they don't have compassion or empathy or sympathy for you or anyone else that does have a trauma that's keeping them stuck and not being able to be the person that they were created to be.
You're right. Wow.
So if your parents don't work through their trauma, then it makes it much harder for you to work through yours, because they're not going to be empathetic towards you doing it.
True. And, that's that pathology that we are passing along, the things that we have learned from our family, that continuous trait of this is how we've done it. Not saying that it's right or wrong, depending on some cases, but still that pathology is the case. You're right. Just being trapped in the cycle of this is what we've done to handle this kind of situation.
Right. You just ignore it. I think the other thing is trusting your memory. Our society does not give people a lot of support to trust their memory, that, oh, you just made that up, or why would you remember it 19 years later, and
who would want to make up something like that? You know what I mean?
Well,
like, I'd be, really, like, if we're going to make up something, it would be something good, at least, like, who wants to? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and the same with sexual, assault, a lot of your body suppresses it. Part of your soul fragments. And that's where a lot of compulsive habits come from, is this fragmented soul part. You're in so much pain that you're using these behaviors to try to override the pain. But a lot of people have problems with people remembering that they were sexually, assaulted 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
So true. So true.
And then we don't believe them, and so, and when you tell your parents and your parents don't believe you, it's really on you, so to speak. So what do? You just close down, well, if they don't believe me, nobody's going to believe me. So I think it's real important that we understand when people have these memories come back, that it's repressed memories. There is such a thing in psychology, and it's trauma that you repressed, and now your body feels safe enough to start releasing it. And you can start embodying the emotions that went with it, instead of just thinking it through in your brain. Like, okay, I'm angry at the driver. Well, that's you thinking the emotion of anger. It's not getting in your body and you actually feeling it. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
It's like your head and your body are disconnected. So part of that is getting in alignment with your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. And that's when you are grounded. That's when you're in the flow. That's when you're in that place of just, absolute, like,
a bliss.
yeah, bliss and peace. And but that takes transforming, and that takes the willingness to look at your life and look at these situations and look at the truth about your family and these belief systems that you've been handed down, and to start questioning them. And it's not easy when you're the only one in the family bringing it up, or
no, definitely not.
Or they don't believe you. And then you risk losing the relationship with your family. And that's a risk most people are not ready to take, because their family means everything to them. And that has probably been the hardest thing for me, is the most difficult choice that I've had to make to get to where I'm at, is I had to separate from my parents, because they're both very narcissistic and they're both very toxic. They're religious addicts, and everything they don't take responsibility for. God deemed it so.
Oh, okay. Wow. So to this day, you don't have a relationship with your parents?
No, and it's been so sad for me, because it wasn't what I grew up believing. But when my accident happened is when all that changed for my mother. And she made a deal with God that if God would keep me alive, she would be his missionary. And somehow I got caught in the middle of that deal, because she wanted me to be out preaching about who God is and what he did for me and all of that. And ironically, with my book, I'm addressing it, but it's not the same, quote, concept of God that she believes in. It's not the biblical version. And what I found on the other side, when I went to the other side, is that God is love, period, Chris.
Yeah, you're right.
There is no duality. There's no God that's going to judge you, that is going to punish you, you're not going to get the wrath of God upon you for doing something. And, because that's how I grew up in.
That's that old, my grandmother was in that, like, you can't wear red lipstick or skirts above the knee and, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. All these rules, and each church had a different set of rules.
So
and
true.
If you didn't follow the rules, you were bad. And that meant disapproval from God, and you would be separated from your family by going to hell. And when you learn this around age 5 and 6, that's when you're starting to individuate as a little child. When you learn these messages about who God is and, what happens if you don't obey God, those messages, they terrify you. This isn't just fear. This is terror. If you don't get this right, you're never going to see mommy and daddy again, or your siblings. You're going to be down in this place in the middle of the earth, burning in hell. Excuse my word there, but that's where we were taught it is. And I could never understand as a kid. It's like, well, do you like, you're burning up all the time, but do you eat barbecue? Because we take things literally when we're children.
So true.
And it's like, well, how do you take a shower and not put the fire out? Or I just couldn't understand how that could be. It didn't make sense, but I was told it was so therefore it must be so, and I'm getting it from school, I'm getting it from church, and I'm getting it from my family, and I'm getting it from my bubble of friends and influencers around me, because we're all thinking and believing and living the same way. So you don't have any comparison or context to relate that it could be different.
Right, understandably so. I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, how was your experience between the moment that the accident happened to the moment of waking up?
I have nothing to recall there, except when I woke up, I remembered bright white lights. That's all I remembered. And that is, I mean, it was complete blank. My memory could not pull up any part of it. And bright white lights were all that I remembered. And, later, 19 years later, my memory came back and filled in what happened
during that time. And how much time are we talking about, really?
The accident happened at 7:35. So see, we weren't even going to make it back to the academy in time. He already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was worried about. And I would say they thought estimated I was clinically dead before EMS got there, 10 to 12 minutes. So they worked on me for a while at the scene. So I would say 25 to 30 minutes at the most.
Wow.
And then I didn't wake up until the next day. I was totally unconscious.
Wow.
So.
And what did your memory fill in that 20 or 30 minutes?
Nothing, just the bright white lights.
I mean, and I was 20 years later or 19 years later, what did the memory fill in?
That's when I was working at the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mm-hmm. And I was just going about my normal day. I went to Starbucks, got my usual drink there.
They're like, Nicole, it's your tea is ready. Like, hey.
Yeah. I was drinking soy back in the day.
Oh, okay. Yes.
They let me bring in my own soy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That doesn't happen anymore. So anyway, I got the drink and I went back to get my car to go to work. And I had a flashback. And all of a sudden, I remembered exactly how I was sitting in the car when the accident happened. I had one foot up on the dashboard. The other leg, the left leg was crossed in a triangle on top. I was sitting back. It didn't have seat belts. And I was like, no wonder I cut my left foot off, because that's what went through the windshield first. And then I went butt up through the windshield. And I started shaking and I said, oh boy, I cannot go to work. So I went to my chiropractor, who was also a body worker, and he had no openings for the day. So I sat on the floor and I waited for him to work me in, because I just was in such a state of disarray. And so he finally worked with me to get the memory out. And what I remembered was what I read to you, and there's more of that. And then when I got up to when I flew out, and I called it Casper the Ghost in the book, kind of spirit that came and got me. But after the book was published in late August, I realized it was my grandfather on my father's side who came in an angel.
Oh, wow.
And he took me to the other side, meaning I went up. And I always remembered it was male. I always knew that. And people kept saying, a lot of times they knew the person that when they cross that takes them, because when you do die, deceased loved ones, angels, your pets, they all come and surround you. You don't die alone. They take you, escort you over to the other side. So that fear of being alone, it's just not true. It's just the people that the guides are in the spiritual form. They're not in the human form. Mm-hmm. So you are never alone. But it was my grandfather Kerr, and he was in his mid-30s. He died at age 58 from a massive heart attack. And I was age 58 when those words came to me, when he came to me. So wow. He was waiting until the same age to tell me that he was the one that came down and brought me up. And I could see myself in a ditch on the ground, my corpse. I could see my corpse. And I was like, oh boy. And on the other side, it was that white light that I was just, that's God. That's the energy. And if you think about white light, it's clear. It's not a blinding light. And white light is actually made up of all the colors of the rainbow because it contains all the wavelengths, right? So you're in this spectrum that is just unbelievably comforting and beautiful and blissful and soothing and loving. And wow. It's just, there's not enough words for it, and so up there were other, okay, so I'm not in my body. I don't have that anymore. I'm in my spirit form, soul form, and I hear other angels talking, and
they're speaking in the language you can understand.
I don't know. It's not English.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's a language or if it's telepathy or how I could understand them, but I could understand them. It was clear as a bell. And they were saying that we need to ask for help. That means we here on earth as human beings need to ask the angelic realm for help. And they're not going to interfere because we have something called free will. And except for an emergency situation like the one I was in, where they did intervene and my grandfather came and took me up. But normally they're not going to do that unless you ask for help. And I know people laugh about that. People saying, I asked for the angels to give me a parking space. And sure enough, it shows up, and so there's nothing too little to ask the angels for. And I would tell you, if you don't have a relationship, we all have at least one guardian angel, every single one of us. Some have two, some have more than that. So you have had an angel with you since the day you were born, and you've had a spirit guide with you that are watching you and taking care of you. So developing a relationship with the spiritual realm is really important. And most people don't think about it until they get into a major crisis. And then they start praying specifically, oh my goodness, please, help this person not die, or whatever the request is, but they don't develop it on a daily basis. And, and that's something that we need to start doing, because we need to start preparing for our own death and to help others when they transition, but mostly to prepare for our own graceful passing. Because I had a friend just last week fall down a set of stairs, 55 years old, carrying some boxes, and he died.
Oh, wow.
And then I have another friend across the street who has terminal cancer, who has 2 weeks to 2 months. So he's got time to prepare. And I said to him, is it better to just suddenly die, or, to have some time to prepare? And I answered my own question, because if we're already prepared for our own graceful passing, it doesn't matter if we go fast or if we go slower. But the issue is to start preparing now for it on the physical realm in terms of wills and all that kind of stuff, but mostly on the spiritual realm. What is your context of God? How do you see and what do you believe in when it comes to God? Do you see him as this dualistic God that if you don't do the right thing, you're not going to go to heaven? I had a client, she was 6 years old, and she was coming from a fundamentalist church, and she was so scared she was going to go to hell, and not because she'd done something bad. And I said to her, well, tell me how you see God. And she eagerly said to me, oh, Nicole, God is a blue spirit with colors and balloons and all different colors, no head, and can talk. Clearly, this little girl is still having a direct experience with God, and no filters from other people involved. And to me, that's been the best definition of God that I have heard. God is not a vending machine. I thought God was a vending machine. If I put in the right behaviors and press the button, then I was supposed to get the reward. And I realized in boot camp that wasn't happening. And I was suffering greatly and nothing was being done. And I just couldn't understand it, and I just lost faith in this quote God who was external. And that was the other issue that I have had to come to terms with, is God is not external. God is not this white man in the sky. God is not something outside of me. God is in me. I'm a spark of God, you know, and we and that's one of the things that I'm trying to help people understand is you are God. You are, you know, we all are. And part of the lessons that are coming from the NDEs is, you know, love is all that matters and is the source of all that exists. That's the second one. And if you think about that, if love is all that matters, well, the source of everything that exists is God, or whatever you want to call it. And that means God is love. And period.
And that's
so
what you felt when you were there as well. You said that you felt the
yes.
sense of love.
Oh my goodness, unconditional love. And that's something as humans, we are seemingly unable to give to each other. There's always a condition. And that's what I grew up with, were the conditions of God loving you. And yeah. And my father represented God. So I had to please my father in order to please God. So if I didn't do something right with my father, then I was displeasing God. And so we transfer the image of God. You know, our father becomes that God. And it's unfortunate, especially if you have a very toxic father, let's just put it that, or narcissistic father, you know, or rules, you know, and that's that Marine in him is, you know, he had his own 10 commandments. Let's just put it that way. And I talk about that in the book as well. As, you know, the first one was there was no spending the night ever, you know, and it's just like, I look at kids now and they're spending the night all the time. And I'm just like, man, I never got to do that. Dad's reason was nothing productive ever comes out of any kid sleeping the night over at someone else's house. You just stay up and then you're not worth anything on Saturday. So, you know, he had very strict rules.
Though he sounds like a lot of the parents that, I mean, now the parents are quite loose. You know, it's either they were super strict back then and you learned the hard way. And then now the parents are quite loose. The kids can kind of do what they want, especially dealing with like the social media and stuff. It's a whole nother ballgame.
And you don't have to do chores, you know?
Yeah, it's a whole nother. You're right.
The parents do all the chores, and I'm just like, good to help with dinner, you know.
Well, Nicole, I want to get back on track quickly before. I everyone's wondering, because we've stopped in the meat of like what is beyond. You've stopped us in the meat of your grandfather's taking you.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're like, what is? I'm over here like, girl, what happened? Like,
okay, so
take us, honey, take us.
Okay, I'm up there and I hear this conversation going on about the angels. So that's the first message. And then my angel grandfather says to me, Nicole, your message is to tell other people not to be afraid of death. And I looked at him, I was like, uh-oh, that means I'm going back. And he was like, yes. And I didn't want to go back. I did not want to come back into that body because I knew there was going to be pain and suffering. And I was going to be back at the state of an infant, totally dependent on my parents again, and back into their culture and religion. And
is all this going through your mind in this moment? Were you able to really think about that you were really going back?
Yeah, I didn't want to go back.
Wow.
I was like, you know, I want to stay here. And you will find a lot of near-death experiencers did not want to come back.
This is what I hear, that people don't want, that they're at a sense of peace. And selfishly, the people in the spirit, in the physical world want the person back, of course.
Yes.
But the people always say that they were in a place where they don't want to come back.
Yes. I would concur with that for me because I knew what was going to be my life. And I have had, you know, my whole adult life has been managing the results of that accident on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, and on a mental stress level. Because I have PTSD, I have migraines, I have a lot of things that I have to manage as a result of that.
The physical body being,
yeah, and it's not easy. And pain is not, you know. I really am happiest when I'm pain-free and in the flow and aligned, but the pain-free part, it's not something you can just flip a switch on. You know, you really do. A lot of us have to manage chronic pain, and that's extremely hard. So after that,
tells you, so do you instantly go back into the body?
Yes.
What happens?
Yes. I woke up in the hospital.
Okay. So he said that to you. That was your last thing that you remember him saying, that, you know, you have to tell people not to fear death.
Be afraid of death. Yes.
And around you, are you able to see, you're still in the midst of this bright light? Are you able to see any figures, any colors besides the white?
Yes, there are colors beyond the 100 and however many are in the crayon box now. Haven't bought one in a while, but they're colors that I saw that didn't exist on planet Earth. So there's and that's why I think that little girl's impression of God with the beautiful color balloons, I was just like, oh my God, she can see these colors too, you know. And music, you know, and just beauty beyond bliss. Death is absolute beauty, light, and loving kindness on the other side. And my own experience and that of hundreds of thousands of others confirm that, you know. So it was so peaceful, and it was so blissful, and it was so magical, you know. And you don't want to have to come back here and deal with the reality of what we have to live with, which is a lot of fear. You know, there's no fear, and there's no judgment. And I think that is one of the biggest things is, you know, we aren't judged. And even Jesus said, judge not lest you be judged. And look at all the judgment that goes on, even with people especially with people in religions that are supposedly, you know, following Jesus. You know, there's a lot of that hypocrisy. So once I woke up, that whole experience like got shut away in a box. And all I could think about when I opened my eyes was, don't tell my dad, he'll kill me. And that's because he's going to assume I was smoking, drinking, and dating that cadet. And sure enough, he actually judged me, told me and blamed me for it. And even though I wasn't driving, even though I wasn't drunk, you know, and to this day, he's never said he's sorry. And I want to say in the epilogue of my book, my roommate quit the academy in December of that same year. And I've never spoken to her. She came to the hospital a lot, but she didn't tell me she left. And for 38 years, I have not seen or heard from her. So I found her on Facebook in May, and I got together with her and the two other gals from our squadron, and they didn't know what happened to her either. And she said, Nicole, I'm so sorry. And I said, oh my goodness, why? And she said, I caused the wreck. I said, you did what? I said, no, it was the guy driving. And she said, Nicole, you and I had set it up beforehand that we were going to drive back together, you know, from the event. And I said, I don't remember any of this. And she said, when we were leaving, there was a drunk cadet that I really, really liked. And I was going to drive his car back to the academy, and I wanted to be alone with him. So you asked me if you could hop in our car to go back. And I told you no, that I wanted to be alone with him, and that there was one guy left over there. And you told me, well, he's been drinking. And I said, well, they've all been drinking. And I said, but I don't feel comfortable. She goes, Nicole, go have some fun. I'll see you back at the academy. And she never did. So she couldn't bear the guilt and the shame. And she said it has haunted her for 39 years.
Wow.
That our lives would have been completely different if she would have just let me in the car and driven me back.
Oh my God.
So you just never know. And then I tell my dad that, Chris, thinking, oh, now he's going to understand and forgive me. And I didn't do anything wrong, so to speak. And what he says to me is, you still made a bad decision and you should have walked back to the academy. And that's when I just said, I will never talk to you again. That is unbelievable that you cannot apologize and have any compassion to what you have done and your words have said and your behavior toward me for what happened, because I did know and I just didn't remember. And that's the piece I wish she would have communicated to me 39 years ago. And she said, I thought you knew and you were angry at me and didn't want to have anything to do with me. So that's why communication is so important.
True. So true.
Yeah. Is check out your stories with each other. Is this what you remember? What do you remember? Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is so intense. Do you drive a car today, or is there any trauma if you're...
Well, I do. I've always had a big car.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when the years when I didn't remember what happened, I would always drive. If I was with a group of people, I would always volunteer to drive. I wasn't going to drink, so I was going to be the driver. So I was in control, because that set up a huge need to control my life, because my mother had told the doctor said, Nicole needs to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist with this trauma. And she said, no, we've got God and Jesus. Thank you anyway. Can you believe that? And here's the truth. She was wrong. God does not come down and sit on my sofa and say, Nicole, what's your problem today? And help me through this. So the mental health piece, she did not believe in, or my father. Oh. And so that's why they didn't get help with their traumas. And I was just like, so I developed an eating disorder, compulsive eating. And that's how I dealt with my pain for almost 20 years, which was almost the exact amount of time, now that I'm thinking about it, that my memory was gone.
Wow. That could have been, that this is, so now the eating disorder has been taken care of?
Yes, it's resolved.
Okay.
I eat whatever I want when I want. And, I was suffering at one point from anorexia, malnourishment, and it was malnourishment from my mother's love, because she turned on me by agreeing with my father.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel that they're abandoned.
Nope.
Sense of being abandoned. My gosh, that can do a lot.
Yep.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I want to turn and ask a little bit about the book. I know you've been talking about it a little bit. How did you decide that it was the right time to write the book?
Well, I tried for the past 13 years to write it. I've gone to workshops. I have submitted it for, thought I was ready for submission for publication. I've had different coaches. But during COVID, when we moved from Hawaii to New Bern, and we were in that isolation phase, I just knew it was time. And the book helped me heal. To be here and be focused on that really helped me heal. And a self-publishing company was just kind of handed to me from another person, and they're in New York. And it just all came together. When things are meant to be, they happen with grace.
Yes,
Chris,
you're right.
It all lines up, and it's really easy. And that's what happened with this company. And I love their approach. And, they redid my website, and the book, I'm doing an Audible version, which will be available in the spring.
Look at you, Nicole. Get it, girl.
And it's a bestseller. In the first week, it went to a
Congratulations.
So
you're living it up. Live it up. Yeah. Live it up. Well, can you just give us something that you want us to know from the book, maybe like a highlight, something you feel everybody should know?
They are the 10 common lessons from near-death experiencers. And the first one, like I said, was we don't die. and you all the way through, everyone and everything is connected. And I got them from their 2020 annual report, but I go through them in the book, and they're all positive. Every single one of them is a positive lesson about people who have crossed over to the other side. And death, usually is cloaked in this veil of gloom and doom. But I'm here to tell you, it's beauty, light, and loving kindness on the other side. So those lessons, and I would say, I talk a lot about trauma and being stuck in your body and how it can keep you from healing, and also your soul and soul loss and fragmentation and what that is, and how to reconnect with your soul. And you may need other healers to help you do that.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I wanted to ask you, what song expresses where you are in life today?
This is it. Make no mistake about it. Remember Kenny Loggins, Keep the Fire?
Keep the Fire.
That was back in 1979. And do you know, I was reading about that because it just came to me immediately. It was when his dad was going through multiple surgeries for vascular issues. He wrote it, and Michael McDonald helped him with the lyrics. And it was about life. This is it. Not about love. A lot of people think it's about love, but this is it. This is your life. Live it today. Don't get caught up in these fears about death. And then the other song my husband actually wrote for me. He's a singer-songwriter, Dr. Paul. And She Came Back. And that would probably also be my tagline in life is She Came Back, and now she knows why.
Oh, yes. All right now. Now that's hot. That's hot. That's hot. I love that. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, the other thing is on credentials, I have a lot of alphabets after my name, but the most important is BTDT. And that means been there, done that. I think experience is the best credential for any of us, because until it happens to you in person, you don't really get it.
You know what? It's true. We can only just understand what's being told to us, but really you can't understand until it happens. When you burn yourself, there's no difference compared to someone saying that it's hot and it hurts when you touch that fire. But when you actually burn it, there's nothing to say. Like, it's completely different.
Yeah. And that's why I wrote the book, is to help people with their fears about death. There's a checklist in there. There's book club questions. If you have a book club and you choose my book, I will try to zoom in on it for 20 minutes or so, if we can work out the time zone issues, and support you through the loss of loved ones, because we are human and we do grieve, and there's pain and loss. But to remember that the bigger context is benevolence and extraordinary. And if you let go of these fears, you're going to truly live a happier life. And I hope my book will inspire people to live fully and freely with their hearts and their hands open wide.
I love it. Yeah, we can't get anything with closed hands. And
Nope.
we want open hands and open arms. I love that. I love that. I want to close with a little fill in the blank. You just tell us what you feel when the question is asked to you. I'm happiest when I'm
pain-free and with my family.
Oh, I love that. I'm hardest on myself when I
work on this to try not to be hard on myself, but I'm still human. And when I make a commitment and then I, am in pain that day for whatever reason, and I have to cancel, so I'm unable to fulfill the commitment. That's hard for me.
Yeah, me too. The strength I'm most proud of is,
I got to say, resilience.
Yes. We love resilience.
I mean, and then I had 2 more code blues in the hospital, so I was really trying to leave again.
They were like, no, not today, not now, not this year.
No, my angel's like, you're staying put. We need you.
We got a mission to do. Yes.
Yep.
I praise myself when I
try, when I really go for something and I at least try and don't just shut the door on it.
Nice. I confess that I want to be more
Spontaneous. I think that's been an issue when you're in a situation where you have tried to control everything your whole life to stay safe. It keeps you from being spontaneous because, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's what I'd like to be more spontaneous.
Nice. Nice. I'm spiritually fed by.
Oh, Mother Nature. It just all things in nature, all creatures in nature, other enlightened and high vibe, souls out there. And I would say my angels and guides.
I love that. Yes, 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 yes. Nice. Thank you so much for that. I like to close with this last question to all my guests. Is your glass half empty or half full?
Oh my goodness. Today it's all the way full.
I love it.
But it is mainly half full now. But if you come from a family where you're criticized and your self-esteem is very low, and you see yourself as and you have low self-esteem, and you're constantly around people that reinforce that, then you have no choice but to see it as half, the other half.
Yeah, half empty or empty.
Yes.
Yeah. Or no glass at all or none of it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But talking about this kind of stuff, Chris, makes me you should see me. I'm just beaming over here. I love talking about all of this because these are times to awaken to who you truly are.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what anybody has told you in the past. The past is the past. Live today. The future will take care of itself. Put your intentions out there and don't let anybody tell you who you are.
I know that's right. Be the best that we can be. I love it. I mean, you've given us a lot of great nuggets. I'm scared to ask this. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
No.
You've been showering us with lots of goodies. So but just maybe there might be one thing that you want to leave us to be thinking with, to be on our minds.
I would say love yourself. Love yourself unconditionally.
Yes.
Quit using should on yourself. If you should yourself, you're shaming yourself. And just let yourself, when you do something that screws up, that's why we're put here on earth, is to learn lessons. Okay. We didn't come here to be perfect, or else we wouldn't have needed to come. So lighten up on yourself, love yourself, and then you will attract those people who are in that same vibration or in a higher state. And that's what we're all about. Is we're all energy. When we take that last breath, there's no, it's like we all bleed red. Well, when you think about breath, all of our breath is the same color, right?
True. You're right. I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah.
Aww.
And that's what goes.
Yes. Awesome. Please tell everyone, how can they reach you if they want to find out about Nicole Kerr?
Okay, well, you can visit my website, www.NicoleKerr.com. That's all one word. And Nicole is Nicole. I'm on Amazon. My book is, and Barnes and Noble, and the paperback version's on sale for just $9.99. That would be a venti Starbucks cappuccino and probably a croissant or a donut hole. I don't know. In Japan, it might be a lot more. But I'm on Facebook at Nicole.A.Kerr. I'm on Instagram at Nicole.Angelique.Kerr, LinkedIn, and Goodreads. So that's all I can handle, Chris.
That's plenty. That is plenty. And everything will be posted underneath when this is posted, so everyone will be able to find it as well if they weren't able to write things down or punch. So it'll be listed there. But yeah, it's good to be all over. This variety in this time of age is important. Definitely.
Yeah, but there's so many more platforms. People are like, are you on TikTok? I can't keep up with all that.
You know what? Enough is enough. That's what I say. You know what I mean? And if not, then somebody else can do it.
I bet if you're meant to find me, Chris, you will.
Exactly. This is it. Let's be real.
There's 2 logins. This is it. See?
Right. Thank you so much for being a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so happy to have had you today. You have really dropped some amazing nuggets of knowledge, as I love to say. And it's just been so interesting to hear your story and how it has changed you to be the person that you are today, and about, how you have developed from the home that you grew up in and the spirituality that was developed there to what you have grown into and who you have become. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I think it's great that you can go and share your story. Thank you for writing the book.
Oh, you're
And,
welcome.
a lot of people are interested to know about the other side. And there's a fear. And then, there's a lot of people who are speaking out about all kinds of things. And there's so many other religions that are out there, and people are just confused. So
Yeah.
it's nice when
Yeah.
someone can just give some clarity. And in the end, it's all positive. And
That's
that's
exactly right.
that's what it
Yep.
ends for, that people can just be left with knowing that it was something good, and the feeling of comfort and love. You can't beat that, and anyone who knows love understands, like, yeah, who doesn't want to be surrounded in that? Especially after
Exactly.
you especially after you've left one body. Yeah,
Yeah, you're free. You're free of all the fears. And if you think about life without fear, it's just it's stunningly beautiful and glorious. And I can't get enough words out of my mouth that describe the beauty of it.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today. We really
Well,
appreciate
thank you,
you.
Chris. Yes, it's been a delight to talk to you.
Yes, thank you as well. We'll see you real soon.
Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
And thank you to all our listeners listening in to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform for everyone to share their life experiences. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Levens. Please subscribe, follow, and rate this podcast on Apple Music and Spotify for more learning experiences. Until next time, know you are blessed. See ya!